Most people don't go around talking about their miscarriages. It's not really something you shout about. What's more, people often feel embarrassed or even guilty about them. A problem shared is a problem halved, but as with so many problems affecting women, periods, menopause, postnatal depression, we often feel embarrassed, as if we're moaning or just plain wrong to air them about. The only useful thing my economics degree taught me was that, in all decisions in life, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. I grew up as a Muslim. It was quite a conservative upbringing. I didn't wear mini skirts, but my mom and dad had a good sense of humor and were creative. I guess all of that shaped me. I don't usually eulogize about people, but I saw Russell Brand doing stand-up before. He was really high profile. I didn't really know what to expect, but I laughed until my belly ached. We need to take back control of our political process. We know so much more about what Brexit will mean and the health implications, especially for those who are already in a disadvantaged position. Life in Blue Peter's world is always presented as happy, positive, and fun. It's an adventure that you have to make the kids believe they want to join in. There are no marks for being a scaredy cat. In general, I think we're more or less shaped and formed by our late 20s. Things come along during that time that make us cynical. By the time you're in your 30s, it's hard to unpick those mindsets that have formed. It takes years of therapy to undo them. A final say referendum on the Brexit that actually lies in front of us will give everyone a tangible and decisive vote. I and most people, Brexiteers and Remainers alike, want the same thing, the best for the UK. Because my parents are Muslim, there's no doubt they wished I would marry someone Muslim. My mum is your archetypal Asian mum, always feeding people. If there was no food in the cupboard, she'd still manage to rustle up a feast. Bangladeshi foods such as pilau rice, curry, and korma. 1 minute you're up a mountain, the next you're down a well. 1 minute you're with Tony Blair, the next you're with McFly. 10 years feels like 2 years when you're in the Blue Peter bubble. The brilliant thing about Blue Peter is the variety of the stuff you do and the experiences that you have. Just amazing experiences. I wear mascara, eyeliner, a bit of foundation, and blusher. I always think lip gloss makes you appear properly made up. Slap it on and suddenly you look glamorous. I'm the youngest of 3 children and grew up in Ealing, West London. My eldest sister, Newton, is 9 years older than me, and my middle sister, Rupa, is 3 years older. From a young age, I was really into pop music because I had these 2 older sisters who were into it, and I wanted to be like them. They liked Wham, and so I was really into them too. Food lovers tend to make life difficult for themselves on their travels. It's like traveling first class. If your expectations are so high, you're bound to be disappointed. I guess when you're on Blue Peter, there's that goody two shoes image, which people find attractive. Journalists know other journalists. That's the only reason my engagement made it into the papers. I don't think real people are interested. Just the media, just Twitter. I'm really not aware of much press. I could drive myself mental if I went on the internet. I'd probably overanalyze it anyway. There's so much media that I'd feel bombarded, so I don't pay it much attention. At 8 or 9, I passed the exam for Notting Hill and Ealing High, a private school. I had an assisted place. I was always the one who, for financial reasons, didn't go on the skiing trip or whatever. When I was in the 6th form, I presented a cable and satellite program about music, television, and video. I used to do public speaking competitions. My levels were physics, chemistry, and maths. Science is fascinating, but I wouldn't say I have used it since then. I decided to do economics. Economics is a good degree to have, but the subject is very theoretical at Cambridge, and I found it frustrating that you can't apply a lot of the models to particular circumstances. Me and my husband think the internet is a really positive thing. We know games that have taught our children problem-solving skills, but that doesn't mean we are going to, say, play Call of Duty. My husband Charlie says I get ready 5 minutes before I go out the door. I am one of those people who can't do anything unless it's imminent. That's how I roll. I like to wear things that don't need ironing. It seems a fundamental design flaw when clothing needs ironing. There are loads of fabrics these days that don't need ironing. so I stick to those. I had an Instamatic Windon camera and remember buying the flash cubes and fixing on top of the frame. The flash credits were limited, so you had to be careful not to waste any. I have surreal dreams, so much so that I can never make head nor tail of them. My parents really wanted me to have an arranged marriage when I was younger, but I think they have updated a bit with the times. It was daunting, giving up a regular job for a freelance world where every day off is a day of unemployment, and you are conscious you are not earning. But it was time to take a gamble and see what's on the other side. My parents grew up in a village where they didn't even have running water. They are first-generation immigrants who are proof that arranged marriages can work, although I wouldn't want one. Because Blue Peter can get you access to places if you go to somewhere like NASA, you don't just see what most people see. You can get a lot of behind-the-scenes access. You can talk to an astronaut. And then I saw this article in Time Out magazine for TV presenters, so I went along with my sisters and we did this audition. It was open auditions. It was just a fun day out, but there were maybe 600 people there or something. It was just crazy. I don't really buy a weekly magazine, but do flick through them if they're in front of me. A bit of style and a dose of gossip is just what you need sometimes. I'm trying to start reading books that you gain knowledge from in order to challenge myself more. As a rule, I tend to read easy, reading populist type books, but I don't feel like I'm learning enough. I like interiors as much as exteriors, but interior designer just sounds naff as a job. I say throw away jokey things when you're young looking and you are presenting something that has gravitas. You can't look down your nose, but when David Dimbleby does it, it's okay. Blue Peter scarred me for life. I was kayak surfing in Cornwall and the waves were so strong it was more like white water rafting. I had to hang on for dear life. At one point I let go and my hand was crushed on a rock. I've never been more terrified than when I learned how to paramotor. They attached this machine to my back as if I was a stuntman in a James Bond movie, and I had to fly over all these trees and patches of concrete in Cirencester. My parents are proof that arranged marriages can work. It is a great part of my culture, but I grew up in a completely different place, so I wouldn't want anyone to arrange a marriage for me. I've become more cause-driven as I've got older. Maybe that's a result of having kids. You become less carefree and more worried about things. I did this show for Sky called King of the Nerds, which was a reality show looking for the world's biggest nerd, essentially celebrating the geek, which is also what I'm about. I'm lucky in that the media is much more freelancy, so I didn't have that pressure that lots of people have. If you jump off the ladder, then you get left behind. I used to watch TV in the days that I was on TV, but in that time, streaming has come along, so I can honestly say I have no idea what's on real-time TV. I remember as a kid liking long, funny words, and often being into things like that can be perceived as square, but actually, as we know, now that we're adults, it's really cool. The more knowledge you have, the better. I think relaxation is escaping from your everyday encounters. You can read the words on a page and be transported to somewhere else, and the more consumed you are with it, the more you're cocooned. When I was growing up, I always felt a bit like I didn't quite fit in, a feeling that perhaps still lingers in the background to this very day. I was the small brown girl in the big white suburb. Mental health really is a search to be happy, I think. That's what people want in life, and if you're happy, you're winning. My parents were first-generation immigrants. My mom wore but at school and as a teenager and in my 22nd, I wanted to fit in. There were no small, brown kids as the center of the children's fiction I grew up with. My husband has a wife who is happy to wander around in old leggings held up with worn elastic. I'm happy with who I am, and I'm more concerned with other issues and trying any way I can to make a better world for our children. No one went to the ballot box to vote for something worse than the status quo. In the UK, we have general elections roughly every 4 or 5 years because we know circumstances, situations, and therefore opinions change over time. A serious economic downturn will undermine women's rights on multiple levels, and it is the women who are already the most disadvantaged that will be hit hardest of all. Increased tariffs and a weakened pound would mean higher food prices, hurting the poorest families, and the women trying to make ends meet at the heart of them the most. When they do actually get pregnant, most expectant mothers understandably keep the whole thing a secret because of how fragile the first 4 months can be. The thing about local government is they want to hear what local people think, but for the most part, their systems are so long, dull, and bureaucratic that people only get involved when there's an issue they really care about. In all aspects of our society, we overcomplicate things under the guise of making things easier and simpler, when in fact we are doing the opposite. If you're broke and you're living on the street and you're happy, you're still winning compared to someone who is rich and depressed, because your mental well-being is still there. KONNIE HUQ, born July 17, 1975, was born in the Hammersmith district of London, the daughter of Muslim parents who emigrated from East Pakistan in the 1960s. She grew up in the Ealing district of London with her 2 elder sisters, Newton and future Labour Party politician Rupa. She attended Notting Hill and Ealing High School and obtained 9 GCSEs, then gained A-levels in chemistry, mathematics, and physics. She went on to study economics at Robinson College, Cambridge, graduating with a 2:1 degree. KONNIE HUQ is a British television and radio presenter, screenwriter, and children's author. She became the longest-serving female presenter of the British children's television program Blue Peter, presenting it from 1997 to 2008. She has been a presenter and guest of shows, including the 2010 series of The Extra Factor on ITV2. HUQ trained part-time at the National Youth Music Theatre. In 1989, at the age of 14, she appeared with them on Blue Peter and sang a solo. The following year, she appeared alongside Jude Law in Captain Sturrock, a National Youth Music Theatre production. Before the 1992 general election, HUQ interviewed Labour leader Neil Kinnock for the children's programme Newsround and appeared as a contestant on Blockbusters. In the same year, she appeared as an uncredited extra playing a schoolgirl in the BBC One sitcom 2 Point for Children in the series 2 episode I'm Going Slightly Mad. Her presenting debut, at the age of 16, was on the satellite television show TVM. She then appeared on a GMTM Saturday morning children's quiz show entitled Eat Your Words between 1994 and 1996. She was assisted by Mark Spate before Simon Parkin took over. In 1997, several months before joining Blue Peter, HUQ presented Channel 5's early morning children's program Milkshake.